Herself. Joyce. No. Hello, Nancy.
Good morning.
Good morning. And Bill and Joyce and Morgana and Dawn. Dawn, I'm coming. You're in Vancouver, aren't you? Okay, I'm coming to Vancouver. My next appearance will be at the Vancouver School of Theology, which is very interesting. Why would they invite me? I'm not sure, but it should be fun.
When is that?
It's next week. I'm leaving here on Tuesday morning, and I think it's Wednesday and Thursday is the conference.
Oh. I wonder what it's about.
Well, I think I could be wrong, but I think it's an interfaith conference, although the person who made the invitation is Rabbi Laura. Hey, well, good. It's a nice group of people. I'm wondering, as I'm admitting people, if you wouldn't mind in the chat, just writing, well, you don't have to write your name because it'll automatically appear, I think. But if you would let us know where in the world you're coming from, that would be really helpful.
Are you waiting for individuals to self-introduce?
If each person could just, put down their name and where they're from. Like Bill is coming to us from Fort Myers. And oh, Bob is here. And Bob, well, there you are. I did not recognize you in your comfortable state in Mexico City. Well,
Oh, nice. There's no chairs here. There's just lounges, couches, and lounge chairs.
okay. And where are you located? In a coffee shop or something?
No, I'm in my office at my house.
Oh, okay.
There's
So
light.
interesting. No chairs in your office.
No, there is.
Lounges.
I was trying to make it acceptable for me to lay.
Oh, okay. Okay, good. Okay. And Jen from Flagstaff, Arizona. Oh, that's great. Nancy, we know, is coming to. Nancy just does not have a permanent place. She is the woman on the move. She's coming from Colorado Springs, place I know really well, having taught at the Colorado College. And then, but she is associated with St. Augustine, Florida. Okay. And others here are shy. Okay. Morgana's in the Netherlands. And please let me know if I mispronounce your name. We have somebody who's coming on D00066. Okay. And I am going to get rid of the captions. I don't know if people have captions. If you can turn on your video even for just a moment so that we could put a face with the name. Anna, I'm guessing is from, I think Anna was with us before, and I think you're from Portugal, or at least your name looks Portuguese. Gervin, I think I've had the pleasure of meeting you. I'm not sure if it's Uganda. And Gocha, I'm not sure about. Oh, good, Anna. Okay, I was right about Portugal. Okay. And Carol, where are you from?
Yes, thanks. I'm also quite unfamiliar with Zoom, all the Zoom meeting accessories, so I may not be participating adequately, but I'm zooming in from my home in Keene, New Hampshire.
Oh, Keene, New Hampshire. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, great. Okay, and Jen, and I hope I'm saying, is it Gocha correctly? And okay, so Gervin is from the Congo, but is living in Uganda. Okay, right, in a refugee settlement. Okay, well, I'm going to start, and please feel free to interrupt me as we go along. This is a 90-minute session, and I hope that we're going to have a lot of interaction. One of the things that I had put in the description of our gathering today was the hope that you would come to this session if you're interested in creating a compassionate community. And we use the word community deliberately. When the charter first started back in 2009, the use of the word city was very confusing to people because some of the very first places that were involved in the Charter for Compassion actually were cities. Leiden was the first city in Europe to become a compassionate community. And then in the very first city in the world to become a compassionate city was Seattle. And then Seattle was challenged by Louisville, Kentucky, in kind of a gaming format, saying, you're not as compassionate as you say you are. You have to prove it. And so it was the birth of something that we called the Compassion Games that were really, part of the Charter for Compassion, but were independent. And so there was a little, what became a new word in the vernacular. There was a friendly co-opetition instead of competition, a cooperating with one another. So Seattle and Louisville, Kentucky made that kind of opening. But then as we moved along, the next community that joined the Charter for Compassion was a village in India. I'm sorry, it was in Pakistan. So it was a village in Pakistan who joined. And then we started to get inquiries like, well, we're really not a city, we're a town, we're a village, we're a hamlet. Questions came from the UK. So then we looked for another word, and a word like community could encompass all of these different kind of concepts of a community. So we went in that direction. And so we eventually found people who were in retirement homes who wanted to have a compassionate community. Gervin is in a refugee resettlement place, and so we've been in conversation with him of how a community can be formed in that settlement. Denver came along and said, gosh, it's really hard to make a big city like Denver compassionate. So why don't we do it by neighborhoods? And so in Denver, they started by going neighborhood by neighborhood. So the Lodo neighborhood, I think, was the first in Denver. And then they kind of flipped and put a lot of energy in another neighborhood. And then eventually decided that, well, we're ready to become a compassionate community. So I do have a little slide deck that I'd like to share and with you, and then we can make a soiree here into. Let me just move this so that I can get to the slide deck. Up, wrong course. Here we go. Right course. Okay, so you'll still be able to see yourself on the side here. So here's what we'd like to do. Certainly we now know at least the names of people who are here. And the big three goals here is to begin to work with one another and to look at the foundation real quickly of the Charter for Compassion. And that is that when the Charter for Compassion came about in 2008 was the recognition of the work of the founder of the Charter for Compassion, Karen Armstrong, who is a historian, but if we narrow that down, a religious historian. And she lives in the United Kingdom, and she has penned a lot of books. But I think that what probably made her famous first was that she did a series for BBC, British Broadcasting, on different religions and traditions. It's kind of a comparative religion series. But then she did individual books on Jesus, Muhammad, Buddha, and then she wrote a book called 12 Steps to a Compassionate Life. But prior to that, she had been a nun and wrote a memoir of her time, The Spiral Staircase. And that got the attention of the TED group, of the TED Talks. And they wanted to recognize not only her ideas, but also they were starting a new program in the TED Talks. And that was that they were going to give a financial award. They had never done it before, to a person who had done exemplar work in a field, but also they wanted to grant a wish to that person. And they wanted to follow through with the wish. And as I said, it was the very first time that they did it. And she was the person that they went to. And her wish of the TED group was to help her start a charter for compassion. And the monetary award was, I think, $100,000. But she was very clever. She said, "My wish is that you, the TED organization, help me start this compassionate charter for compassion." And so they took it to heart, and they are really the folks who got us off the ground, because they paid for our website. They brought together leaders from around the world, religious leaders, I might say, of the Abrahamic faith, and they put online for people to respond to if there was such a thing as a charter for compassion, like a charter like the Magna Carta, or a constitution that might be a part of any country. What should be in that document? And so over 185,000 people responded online. And then the TED organization brought together these thinkers, and they looked at all of these responses, and they wrestled together in one place in the world, in Switzerland, and they summarized in their mind all of these responses and came up with a document, the Charter for Compassion. That Charter for Compassion was unveiled or launched at the United Nations on November 12th, 2009. And so that's always our celebration day. And just as a side point, when you get our newsletter this week, you'll find that we are venturing out to create Charter for Compassion 2.0. The original document that was created and launched in 2009 will stay in perpetuity, because that's the reality of a document. But then what we're going to do is we are asking all people who are members of the Charter for Compassion, people who are online and social media, who read the announcement, to consider what should be in, what wording in particular, and maybe even some new concepts should be a part of the Charter for Compassion. And so over the next few months, we're going to do the same thing that was originally done. And we're going to take those new ideas, and on November 12th of 2025, we will be launching the new Charter for Compassion 2.0. And so, if you have ideas, we'd love for your participation in that. So going on, the idea for the Charter for Compassion led us to think about two prominent ideas. Why would there be a Charter for Compassion? And essentially, we could boil down the 360 some odd words that are in the Charter to the golden rule. That basically, we want to live like the way that people would treat us, the same way that we wanted to be treated. And so that was the undergirding of the Charter. But then it came time to figure out what is the operational end of the Charter. And that was that we have two missions. One mission is that we want to help facilitate the pulling together of the work and the needs of community to make it a compassionate place and a safe place. So actually very shortly after this notion of compassionate communities came about, someone said to Karen Armstrong at a conference, actually in Louisville, Kentucky, and they said to her, asked the question, what is a compassionate city or a compassionate community? And she said that a compassionate community is one that understands that there are problems, that there are children who are not getting the best education throughout the city or the community, that people go to bed hungry at night. And so she went on that, you know, a compassionate community is one that is awakened to the needs of that community. So that was our first mission. And then as a part of that mission, we realized that people need to really focus on what is compassion. And so for the Charter for Compassion, and there's lots of different definitions for compassion, but the definition that the Charter for Compassion uses is the definition of compassion that is used, has been used and introduced by the Vietnamese monk Thich Nhat Hanh, and that compassion is a verb, that it's an action. It is our ability to take the notion of sympathy, which really just weighs on our heart, and empathy that makes us feel um, about the issue with another person or grieve with another person. But then compassion is a way, as Thich Nhat Hanh says, the verb part of this is that it is action, that we really move forward, and in order to alleviate that suffering, that we move it forward and we make a plan. And that's what, you know, the education component of the charter is all about. But then the next part is, you know, how is it then do we bring this compassion and this alleviation of suffering into the community? So that's the foundation of the Charter for Compassion. So now the objectives of this particular gathering, and as you know, this is a 90-minute interaction, hopefully today, and that it will be followed by next week, the second gathering. And I'm going to explain that in a bit of time. But the very first thing is that you now know what part of the principle of the Charter for Compassion is, and that we're really looking and constantly questioning ourselves that we are inclusive, that we believe in collaboration with one another, and that if you are going to be involved in a compassionate community, it has to be more than you. You might have a dedication, you might have a passion to introduce an initiative in your community, but you can't go it alone. You need to have a team of people. And we can talk about that a little bit later, but just so that you know, because you need to weigh your ideas against other perspectives. And you also have to challenge your own sense of wisdom. And that's sometimes a very difficult thing to do. And then we're going to talk about identifying what is it that makes the living in your community, whether it is in, as in Gervin's case, a refugee resettlement place, or if it's a retirement home, or if it's in a neighborhood, if it's on a road like I live on, or if it's in a big high rise in a city with, you know, I hail from Chicago, and so that it's not unheard of that you could have 2,000 to 3,000 people in one building. That by itself is bigger than like the community that I live in now. And so, you know, what is it that brings, you know, a sense of imbalance to the community? What is it that just seems to be just not right within a community? So that's one of the things that we really want to concentrate on. And then the other thing is we have to begin the process of really building relationships. And how do you do that? You do that from understanding who people are. and understanding and appreciating each other's stories. You need to build, I think, the community atmosphere from one where we learn how to accept. Well, first of all, the least that we could do in a community is to tolerate one another. That's the very least that we can do. The next step up is, how is it that we can accept other people? Um, that brings us to another level. But the big move is, how is it that we can appreciate one another? And you can only do that, honestly, I think, through stories and really understanding what brings people together. So let me just move us to one more slide, and just like kind of set the groundwork here, because this will give you an overview of the direction that we're heading. So there's 4 phases that we use in the Charter for Compassion for building a compassionate community. And as I said, it can be any one of those designations that I mentioned. But the first step is really the discovery step. And that's where we're going to lay the groundwork today. Next time that we meet, we're going to go to the committing stage. And then after that, we want to work with each person here, but more importantly, we will want to work with you as you build your team. And so those will be individual meetings. So Anna, for example, in Portugal, if she can find a few people to come together so that we can help her build that team of people, and work through, and it's almost like an individual learning plan, or an execution plan. So the first one this week, discover; the next time, commit; and then individual appointments for building a community. And in building a community, we are kind of extending this pilot. We might want to say, as we're working individually with groups of people, wow, maybe it's necessary that we address some particular issues. So we might have another session that we would invite all of you to, so that collectively we might explore that issue. And then the very last one that we will come together on is evaluation, measurement and evaluation. What does that really mean? How do you measure the accomplishments in a compassionate community? I'm going to just kind of stop at, so that we can look at one another again. And measurement is very, very tricky, and measuring compassion is even more tricky. And so we want to dedicate some good amount of time to looking at that. Now, the charter has a toolbox, and we'll be introducing that toolbox to you. But at the same time, we not only have a toolbox, but we have something that was gifted to us by Compassionate Sacramento, and that is an ambassador's guidebook. And that ambassador's guidebook is like dedicated to an individual like yourselves, and like, what will it take in order for me to be an ambassador of compassion that I can work through myself and in conjunction with other people, and bring it to fruition. So there's really 2 documents that are available to you on the charter website. One is our toolbox, and we'll show you how to access that. And then the second one is the Ambassador's Guide, which really helps focus on you individually. So given that, I'm going to hope that we could, I'm looking at the number of people that we are, 19, including myself here, so 18. So I'm going to put you in groups of 3. And as you go into a breakout room, and Carol, I don't know, as you said, you might not be as familiar with Zoom, but you'll get a little prompt here.
Thank you.
And you'll accept the prompt. And I think for about 10 minutes, and we'll have let's see, maybe 6, so 6 groups. And during that time, if as you spend time with the other person in your group is, sharing a little bit about, where you're from and what your interest is in creating a compassionate community. But the most important question to answer during this time period is what discomforts or challenges are weighing on your heart relative to where you live. So, what are those discomforts or those challenges that are really kind of affecting you in the area in which you live? I feel like sometimes that I live in a really ideal situation. It was a lot different when I lived in Chicago. There were a lot of things that bothered me about my community. In this community, the biggest I think fallback that we have is that I think that food scarcity beyond the immediate road that I live on is a major concern. I think sometimes the fact that politically we are at each other's throats before we even know who we are. So those are the two big things in my area. But it could be any number of things that are cause you to think, oh gosh, this is not comfortable. This is really something that I'm concerned about. It could be education. It could be if you're in an area where there are gangs that, it's that issue that is confrontative and bringing you some discomfort. So we'll break into these rooms, share who you are, what you're thinking about a compassionate community where you live. And, I think weighing behind in your thinking, who is it that I'd like to go on a venture with? Who thinks like me? Who makes me comfortable so that I can really share my ideas with? We'll come back and challenge that, by the way. But at least, you want to start with like-minded people, people who are thinking a little bit like yourself. And then the third thing is let's talk about those things that you're concerned about in your community. Okay, I'm gonna find the breakout group here. Oh, thank you. Who started to record this? Was that you, Merida? Oh, thank you very much. Okay, and I'm looking for my shared tools here, and why can't I find them? My breakout group. Do you have control of this, Merida?
I don't, but if you make me
There
co-host, I'm
they are.
happy to help.
I will make you a co-host, but for right now, you're going to get a prompt. I'm going to assign you just automatically. There's no like back room here. It's Zoom is going to do it for you. You'll get the prompt, and then you'll get a notification that you have a minute or two left before we bring you back. So you'll need to accept the prompt that you're going into a room. Okay, here you go.
You're muted, Marilyn.
Thank you, Merida. My mic was off. So, love to hear what you talked about in your group, and who knows? We might even take a chance here using the whiteboard. So and to gather some of the things that you thought about or presented in your groups. So who wants to start? By the way, did you get the messages for time?
Yes, I did see them.
Okay, great. Who is this person here that's doing this? Okay, I think somebody's trying to.
It's me. It's me, Marilyn. Of course, you know what I'm like. I always like to try things out, but it's so weird. Sorry.
Okay, well here I'm going to make it so that it's more legible. than what you're doing, Morgana. But like, what are some of the comments that people have? Like, what are some of those issues of concern that weigh heavily on your heart?
I was trying to write community.
Okay. So what about community? Oh, is that what you wanted to, not
That
comment?
was not comments. I was trying to write community. No, the one thing that I was in a group with, oh my goodness, Bob and Joyce,
Mhm.
and we're all well traveled. And I think, but one thing that we all realize is that to really feel have that feeling of well-being is being able to connect with your community, which I think is the basis of any kind of if you're looking at working with community and following sort of ideals behind what Karen Armstrong's talking about, then community, but with compassion, kindness and compassion. So I think those are the overriding things that came out of our group, and we were all well traveled. So that was always like, if you don't feel welcome in a community, it makes it really, really difficult.
Yeah. No, thank you for that. I'm just remembering that, and I'll make this brief, but going to New Zealand and coming into a community, and I happened to be coming in on a ship, and the community, there were probably maybe 20, 30 people to welcome you to the community and ask if you had some interest where you wanted to go, and they kind of pointed the way. So yeah, that's a nice feeling. Okay, Nancy, I thought I saw your hand up.
I did put it up. Thank you. Um, well, we were a party of two. I think Anna had to leave. Maybe she was meant to be our third person.
Okay.
So Anna and I had a wonderful, and the time went very fast for our conversation. And interestingly, though oceans separate us and time zones, etc., though we have very common concerns about our communities. And so that led us to an interesting conversation about how many common concerns we will find as, for example, when you get into small groups with people who are building their individual communities, how frequently it will come up about food insecurity, about the unhoused, and the lack of affordable housing in our communities, and the challenges that we face, particularly in this time with questionable leadership, and then questionable choices about emulating those leaders in other countries around the world. And so our hearts feel heavy and hopeful at the same time. And I hope I'm not speaking out of turn on him to say that we are very grateful to be a part of the compassionate movement, and hopeful that if not in my lifetime, in Anam's, that there will be a shift toward the compassionate era, or the compassionate age, as I'm starting to think of it emerging.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks.
Okay. Those are great. Food insecurity, a huge issue almost in any community. Unhoused people, families even, affordable housing, and obviously questionable leadership. I was really quite struck last night in watching a news segment about people in Serbia. I don't know if anyone saw this. It was on the Rachel Maddow show. And there was, in March, an accident because of faulty construction and the lack of government control, where people were killed at a train station. And it gave the community, or in this case, the city of Belgrade, an opportunity to say, we want our leaders to understand how displeased we are with what's going on. And every day, marching is going on in Belgrade. And I mean, it was tens of thousands of people. And there's this wonderful saying that comes out of the revolutionary spirit of Latin America: the people united will never be defeated. So I'm just thinking about this last part that you put up. Anyone else? And please use, if you don't have to look for, you can go down to React, and if you click on that, I think what is a heart, you and click on it, you'll see you can raise your hand. And if not, just open your mic and let us hear from you. There must be more concerns coming out of communities and discomforts. And I am looking. I'm not seeing anyone.
You have a hand raised from Francois and
Oh,
Dawn.
Francois. Okay, thank you. I did not see it. Thank you for helping. Okay, Francois.
But Francois, you need to unmute because we can't hear you.
And I don't have that capability to unmute you, so.
Hello,
Yes, go ahead.
can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Good evening. It's a real pleasure for me to attend this gathering that I've cherished for long, to be part of it. And I'm so happy and excited to be here today. I've really been longing for an organization that works on compassion, because that is our movement. And to learn more also how they do, but I will share a little bit of what we do. We have a compassionate holistic ministry. Let me start by introducing myself, Françoise Mwabuko from Yaoundé, Cameroon. I'm a URI trustee, and our organization is the cooperative circle with the URI organization since 2014. And we work in a very local community where actually we work with our hearts, really giving out compassionate care. So when you ask us which area we are working, we say we are working with the family. We are taking the family along somewhere. So when we come, our organization is called Family Health and Development Foundation. So we work in the lives of families in the community, because our slogan is healthy family, healthy community, healthy nation. So we believe that when we take care of these families, that is how the development in that community can come, and evidently the nation. And so we work mostly in these families, we work mostly with the women and their children. We work a lot with women and their children. We started working with children, and actually they were posing a need for us to come speak with their parents, because their parents were portraying some violent attitudes that they were very uncomfortable with. I really can remember one September back to school when we were sharing books. They tell me, Mama, sometimes even if we are giving the best food, we don't have appetite to eat, because we see our parents fighting and quarreling. And I just say, oh God, why do you even introduce me to this? How do I manage this? And that was about 2-3 years back. It pushed me into doing a lot of training on nonviolence and peace building, because I saw that I was working with a community where there is a lot of violence and people that have no peace and needed to be carried along. And so our compassionate care has carried us into paying fees for children. So if you want to take it up, we pay fees, scholarship for children that have been, before we came, they have been in and out of school. They are not able to stay a whole year in school because the parents cannot pay. So we started by paying for 20. I think last year we paid for up to 60, but we have even more children than that. We are not able to pay for the secondary. So when they graduate from primary, it's hard for us because we are not able. And we work with Chaco Maison du Monde, another organization that brings in some support in clothing and shoes. They give these children shoes when they're going back to school, and sometimes Bibles. And we also give them books when they're going back to school. They've not been able to give bags to anybody. We realize that these children are always very, very hungry. So we give them enriched pap in the community every week, where we make our pap that's been enriched with groundnuts and soya beans. And we progressed this year since February by sharing food, because a lot of them are hungry. We have a problem of food insecurity. So we share food to the families to give to cook for these children.
Can I stop you, Francois? Only because thank you for all of these, because each one of them is so important in pulling together a compassionate community. And as you're indicating, you have, as coming together as a team of people, the ability to respond to issues around food scarcity and issues around domestic violence, which is an educational issue, and then obviously peace building as a result of the work that you're doing. And I'm not sure.
Maternal and child health.
Pardon me?
Maternal and child health. We have women that deliver at home, not by choice, but because they cannot afford to pay for hospital bills.
Thank you. I'm wondering if there are others here that have issues in their community, because what happens with a compassionate community is that, remember I said, coming together with like-minded people who find that it's easy to work with is a beginning step. But then the next step, as you build your team, is to say, who is not part of this team? Whose perspective is not being represented here? Is our team diverse? Does it include different ethnic groups that are part of my community? Does it include different ages within the community? Do we have ways of really bringing in people? And so one of the things, I don't want to jump ahead without seeing if there's someone else who has some particular issues that we just want to be aware of, because of the very fact that living in a community right now, in all of the almost, over 500 communities that we have that are part of the Charter for Compassion, there are approximately 23 issues that are being dealt with globally. And usually what happens is we encourage people to think about prioritizing the issues that you want to deal with. So that, let's say, in the case of Francois, that maybe I'm really concerned about domestic violence, both within schools and how teachers interact with students, or we're interested in domestic violence as part of a family unit or an extended family. I'm interested in raising money so that we can guarantee that the children will be having an opportunity to go to school. We're interested in unhoused people. We're interested in creating affordable housing. You could go on and on and on. I remember when we first started to work with the community in Botswana, they were building their team, and their team was talking and generating enthusiasm with one another, and they came up with 12 items that they wanted to, issues that they wanted to deal with. And in reality, think about it. I mean, they were huge issues. They were children who had lost their parents because of HIV, living on the streets, not having anyone to care for them, inaccessibility of the rights of Indigenous people. And it went on, and every one of them was an overwhelming issue. And asking them to prioritize and say, which one are you going to work with? When I asked the question, they were like, they were stunned. Like, we have to work with all of them. I mean, there was no way of not having them work on each of those issues that they thought were of grave concern. And were they able to do a lot of the work? Yes, they were. But that means that you have to begin to think about how you're building your team, because you cannot have your entire team trying to spread out in 12 issues. But basically what you do is you build individual teams that will respond to the issues that are really necessary for you, so that you want to bring some alleviation of pain and suffering to that particular issue. So building a team is so important, and I can't stress that enough.
Marilyn,
Yes.
Dawn had her hand up.
Okay, Dawn, please.
So maybe we want to hear from her.
Oh, hello. I'm just trying to see how to move into to the conversation now. But I guess I won't talk about our group. We had a lovely group, and Gavin spent some time sharing about the issues in the global south, in the refugee camps in Uganda, food insecurity, and a great project in community gardens. And then I'm I suggested in Canada, which is supposedly a rich country, but my concern is I worked for many years. We have a very notorious downtown East Side, and I even yesterday I went down there to an exhibition, and it's just so much suffering, and it's not just poverty, it's mental anguish. It's people who are just looking like they're really suffering in this. You know, there's addictions and homelessness. And when I was an educator, I still am an educator, but when I taught at the university, I also worked for half-time in the downtown East Side, and I worked with an adult education, and we started a program. And as I identified, there were so many people who'd had learning difficulties, that a lot of people, you know, who have unidentified dyslexia and neurodiversity, especially when it was less identified, ended up failing school and dropping out and ending up marginalized. And so we did work, and we did professional development. We used to before Gabby Matter was famous, he came in, and then I started a program to help train the teachers and also work one-on-one. And there was a lot of success, but unfortunately they closed the school program down, the one hope that people had to try to change their lives. And so now I'm not part of the system. I took people shared a lot of stories with me because I did work one-on-one, and I got to understand how people ended up like that. And my contribution is I tried to write a novel that has integrated these stories, and I'm hoping could be read at a high school and would also help teachers too to understand how the problems can start when people are young. And I'm just trying to get that out there. But I also feel like I'd like to I think we have to start somewhere. I mean, it seems so unmanageable, even more now than 10 years ago, because the cost of living is so much higher. So 10 years ago, I could tell people, if you finished high school and get a job, I can help you get a house, get a life, but you can't do that now. A one-bedroom apartment is, $2,500, right? But still we have to try something. So the way I see it is like, it's like a flood. Like there's so many people there who are just young, 20 years old, right? And so 5 years ago when I was working there, they were only 15. So if we can stop the young ending up there, then perhaps we also want to help the 40 and the 50-year-olds, but because they've had so many problems now with addictions and everything, it's harder. But my question is, how do we address so that we stop this keep happening, that although we can't change the economics, we can help people be more successful in education, be resourceful, stay empowered, believe in themselves, so that somehow their life doesn't become so miserable. Now, just to get to a team, I don't know how to get a team. I mean, when I worked in the schools, it was really hard to see enough compassion and commitment, that people were not just sometimes just doing their jobs, and you could even be punished for not complying and going out and meeting students on the weekend, or giving giving them more time to complete things, so failing was not an option. So I learned that there has to be first a commitment, and as you said, you have to find like-minded people, and I'm just not sure where to start.
Okay, I'm going to turn to the whole group. First of all, I'm going to hopefully get out of the whiteboard so that we can see each other. And maybe there we go with our whiteboard.
In the meantime, I think Carol has her microphone open. I'm not sure if she wants to make a comment. No? Okay.
Okay, so I wanted to turn Dawn's question back to the group. How is it that you get others to commit alongside of you and to work alongside you? Any ideas? Yes, Joyce.
Yes, at our All-Faith congregation, we address these issues, and you've used the word team. We set up a number of teams. We have a climate action team that's very engaged in promoting environmental justice. They do outreach to other organizations dealing with the environment. We have a racial equity team. The racial equity team is reaching out to local organizations that are doing uplift work and tutoring for members of the Black, young people of the Black community. We have a Rainbow Connections team to promote justice for LGBTQ people. So with all these different teams, you get a group. It's essential to have more than individuals. And one of the best places to do it is within a progressive religious organization, such as a church or a congregation. I know that other churches are doing these things. And here in Lee County, we had 15 congregations come together in a group called Lee Interfaith for Empowerment. And they worked on local issues of bullying in schools, about police brutality against minorities. But the thing is, you need collaboration, you need teams, you generate, it's not enough just to feel bad for people.
Right.
Compassion requires action. And so we set together, and they're called Climate Action Team, for example. You don't just feel bad about what's happening to planet Earth. So I encourage people to get in an organization of people, and our Democratic Women's Club is doing the same thing. So there are ways to meet people that will work with you to bring about change in whatever way that you can.
Thank you, Joyce. And Nancy, you have your hand up.
I do. Thank you. I really appreciated earlier in this session when we were talking about how welcoming, so Morgana was specifically talking about feeling welcomed in different communities. And I spent the last couple decades of my career in student services. In student services, the number one rule of student services is to create a welcoming environment. And what I've learned is that's generalizable on an individual level also. When we take with us our welcoming environment, that is us, to be with people and invite them into what we're doing, as Marilyn so graciously did for me when I first became involved in the Charter for Compassion. And it made all the difference. So taking your welcoming environment, inviting people to join in this, to other organizations, as was just mentioned, in the United States, we have the American Association of University Women. All around the world, we have Rotary clubs. We have other organizations, interfaith organizations. If you can put yourself out there and just talk to them about what it is that you envision and invite people to join you, I believe that you will have a self-selected team that will come and get engaged with you. That's my hope for you.
Good. Thanks for that, Nancy. And Bob has put in the chat, Dawn, start here with us. And that's absolutely true. You know, just starting with where you are. But what I hear, Dawn, is that starting where you are and where you want to be might be disconnected in some ways. And so that if you want to change that area in Vancouver, which I recognize, that, you know, how is it that you could get involved there? So I guess the first big question that all of us want to have, I mean, I'm concerned about my compassionate community along my road, which is about 30 houses or so in a mile and a half. I'm concerned about us as one of the starting points. However, you know, it can extend. The other good thing that I just heard, both from Joyce and from Nancy, is the very fact that you look to umbrella organizations. And there you might find some like-minded people that you don't even know, and you can start up a conversation. So it could be a church, it could be an interfaith. Almost every community has an interfaith organization that pulls together people from different religious orientations. And so that might be a place. A school might be a place. Rotary, Kiwanis, well-being place clinics, so that, you know, think about those kind of overarching groups where conversations can happen. I want to share real quickly a story that happened not here in my community, but in a community in which I lived a number of years ago. And this whole concept started in France. And it was, I think in translation, it's the white table dinner. And so that people just put out an invitation and said, everyone come, dress in white, and bring enough food to share with a few other people. And the local community in which I lived, the business association got involved, and they provided tables and white tablecloths that they rented. And so the entire town, which consisted of just 4 blocks, had a big table down the middle, and people came together and shared food. And you didn't necessarily know who you were going to sit with or what food you were going to eat. But this really sparked a lot of community interaction. People who started to talk about, geez, you know, this is a great gathering, or, you know, there's a lot of people who don't feel comfortable about coming to something like this. And then the issue of food scarcity came up, and then community gardens came up. And so over a period of time, which has continued, there have been some solutions to some immediate problems. So, you know, it is a matter of, you know, maybe laying a game plan for your local community. And Don, you know, I'd be willing, and I have a feeling that Bob would be willing as well, to just have a Zoom call and kind of explore with you what are some of the possibilities, because the issues that you're confronting are really extremely complex, because you have a lot of young people who are disenfranchised and are extremely marginalized. You have issues of drugs, you have issues of trauma. I mean, it goes on and on and on. And so I'm going to pose a question right now, and I'm not going to break you into groups because unfortunately our time is somewhat limited here. What's working in your communities? Joyce, we already heard what's working in your community, but what's working in your communities? Must be something.
What I found, Marilyn, is that once you have a common goal, then communities kind of automatically gyrate together anyway, because you have a common goal. In our case, it's been, as Francois pointed out, Francois and I work together with a lot of issues concerning women. So one of our common goals is women's rights, menstrual poverty, that kind of thing. So I think once you have a kind of common goal, as you just pointed out, you know, if there are so many problems which are really, really overwhelming, then where do you begin? So what we found is to kind of concentrate on to just something very, very specific, and then build a community around that. And I think that works, because people remain engaged, and that's the whole thing. They don't tend to drop off. Of course, life gets in the way. Of course, there are always going to be times when people can't make it to a Zoom meeting because life gets in the way. But nevertheless, I think if you have a common goal, then it's much easier to say, hey guys or women, whatever, let's get together today. We have a lot to talk about. So I think that's for me being the glue that holds you together, the focus and the engagement.
So let's unpack that a little bit, because of the very fact that you need to have a group of people who are committed, yes, but you need to continually, and by the way, what's the name of this? It's seeds, building seeds of compassion. You need to constantly bring in new seeds and germinate those seeds. You constantly need to refurbish what you're doing because of the sustainability. You are the team. You're the team that's going to transform and continually transform. This is an existential movement in which you're involved. And so, oftentimes people will say, like for example, a mayor might say, oh, this is great, a compassionate community. We can do a lot with this. Okay, we'll pass a resolution. We'll become a compassionate community. That might last for a year until the mayor gets reelected or doesn't get reelected. You need to build a really strong structure for a compassionate community. It's essential. So thank you for that, Morgana. But I want to keep pressing the community in which you live. Is there something that's going on that's incredible and that it's good for your community? Nancy.
Well, I'm very fortunate to be in St. Augustine community where a number of things are working. We already have a compassionate city that became compassionate city in 2013. So almost 12 years ago, the charter was signed, and it's been practiced since then. And what's been effective in compassionate St. Augustine is that there are initiatives within the compassionate community addressing a number of pressing issues. So we have a gift gardens initiative that really is effectively working with a number of partners to help combat the food insecurity that many of our citizens are experiencing right now. We have a Good Trouble organization, and they specifically work on the John Lewis model for political activism. We have a compassionate women group and a compassionate youth group, and both of those are just extending invitations for people to come and get to know one another in the community, people crossing differences. So whether we get together as the women baking za'atar bread and learning more about Afghanistan and the situations that people are dealing with who are immigrants, refugees from other countries. And this has really brought a lot of relationships together. We also have monthly community gatherings where people can just come together and talk about compassionate work that they're doing so that more people are invited in. So those are a number of effective tools that we have in place. Our
Okay.
Purple Bench initiative.
Yeah, I mean, and this bridges to what Morgana was saying, that you take the issue and you really explore that issue and you commit to the issue. And in your case, now think about it. How long have you been doing this? I mean, for the most part, if you're looking to create a compassionate community, this is the long haul. This is not McDonald's self-serve. You really need to put the grit behind it, and you need to continually confront the issue and build on it. But what you need to do is something in the world of community organizing and beyond, is do appreciative inquiry. What is working? Who is doing good things in your community? How is it that you can join up with those people who are doing good things? How is it that you can strengthen what they're doing so that some communities compassionate communities start out by saying, we want to do this, this, and this, and they start from ground zero. But you need to do some research and find out, is there anyone in your community who is doing this, this, and this? Because you're there to really join forces with them. Joyce, I see your hand is going up.
Yes, the essential thing, if you want to organize, you have to find out what people care about.
Mhm.
At our congregation, we did a survey among the members, and we said, what matters to you? What do you care about? And based on that, we set up 4 teams based on what we weren't preaching to them. We were asking them, where is your heart? What are you concerned about? What keeps you awake at night? So you start with the people and what they care about, because what you love, you will help. If you don't care about people, if it doesn't matter, if you're indifferent, you're never going to get them to act on anything. So start where they are, the things that they do have feelings for, and start from that base and get to know them. That's where my favorite song is Getting to Know You.
Okay.
It's all about relationships.
Yeah, that's really great. I mean, determining what your issue is one thing. And if your issue is food scarcity, who are the farmers in your community? Who's been successful? Is there an organization that helps bring food to your pantries? What kind of help can a new team of people bring to the effort that another group is already doing? These are really important things. If you're talking about home houselessness, going to that community and sitting down and saying, how can we help? That's a wonderful phrase. No matter what issue you're going to confront, how can we help? What can we do with this issue? Do you know of other people who are working in this area? And you'll get an awful lot of information. You'll get a lot of ideas. And that's really very, very essential. And I think the other thing is, what stories in your community need to be heard? Because it is those stories that really catapult you into action. If you don't know the human story behind the issue, then it's really hard to get involved. And so just want to make certain that those few issues are really dealt with. Now, we don't have much time left, but one of the things that I'll be sending you, most probably tomorrow, will be a video. You might not need it, but there were a lot of people who signed up for this session, so who possibly could not come. So we want to make certain that they have an opportunity to see what we talked about today. So that's number one. Then number two, a little bit of homework if you will take the challenge, and that is some specific links that'll bring you to parts of the toolbox under discovery, so that you will have information about this aspect of building a compassionate community. So that'll also be in the email. There was one other thing that I wanted to share with you, and it's just totally left my head at this time. But I'm just wondering, as we're moving towards a close here, if there are questions that you might have that would help frame the next time that we meet. Okay, I'm looking here. The next meeting is at the same time next week. And I believe it is the same link. And so that when you registered for this session, that it automatically puts you into the next session. And if you find a friend, a colleague that you can bring along, that would be wonderful. And very, very helpful for the next time. that we meet, because we want to try and really help you build a team that's going to be effective in your community. The thing that that popped back into my mind, which is really, really important, and it is not something that happens within the first few weeks, but that is, as you have this, seed germination of your team, then the next thing is, okay, we need some variety in our garden. And that variety are people that perhaps don't think the same way that you think. People who represent a different group in society, a different age group, people who might be living across the way in the community. Geographic location is really important. So, invitations, thinking about invitations and getting to know you. I had the privilege a number of years ago of spending a week of classwork with the psychologist, Carl Rogers. And it was very interesting because one of the things that he had done in his life was to spend time in bringing people from the Republic of Ireland and Northern Ireland together in retreats and learning opportunities. And with a promise that, whatever that they were confronting or talking about was not going to be shared. He was not going to use it for a book other than to refer to those sessions that he had. And ironically, years later, people wrote about how important that was, those events, that retreat that they had with him, where they actually had an opportunity to get to know one another and learn one another's stories and begin to understand and accept one another. Because remember that scale? Tolerance is the least that we can do, very least. And that acceptance is a little bit higher, but appreciation of another person or another community of people is the goal within a compassionate community, those three steps. And obviously, there are things below tolerance that we all know about, and we don't even want to go there. We want to at least start at the tolerance level. So I think that's an important part of what we did today. And so I actually had a little summation slide, but we'll forget that. But the other, maybe I'll ask you, what are some other points that rise to the surface from our 80 some minutes together? There must be something.
I think it would be nice if we were able to report like who we contacted within the community we're creating or something like that, so that there's like a homework.
Okay, a little word of reflection here from Anum. We need community to move forward. Yeah. Any other points? Go ahead, Joyce.
I would like to emphasize developing a sense of the sacred. I think the thing that's missing in Western civilization is a sense of the sacred. If we consider all living beings as sacred, it changes your whole perspective and your worldview, and you relate to people automatically with a sense of compassion and feeling when you have respect for them. Just this week, a black snake in my yard got injured and part of his tail was gone. I think, I don't know, something happened to him. I took that snake and I put it over in the bushes and buried it. It'd been part of my neighborhood. I cared about that silly little black snake that I used to see crossing the road. So just having a sense of the sacred of all life, it enables you to have a feeling for things and to care about them. and to care about each other. And that goes way beyond tolerance and to acceptance. I attended a group that was dealing with virtues, and there's a whole like 100 virtues. And the first one I chose was appreciation. And the second one I chose was reverence. And the third was compassion. Appreciation is the foundation for everything. And if you have appreciation, it's based on a sense of the sacred, or reverence for all life. And compassion flows automatically from having a sense of the sacred and appreciation for things. So it isn't just simply, oh, let's feel nice about things. You have to develop a different worldview.
No, and thank you for that, Joyce. Did I hear someone else want to say something? I think that it's really important to know that this compassion business is hard. It's not easy. It's not fluffy. It really involves an awful lot of skill building within ourselves. We'll hopefully have an opportunity, to talk about that a little bit. And it is a commitment of time and a commitment of patience and a willingness to hear each other's stories, because it is that's the glue. I think that a portion of the glue that Morgana was talking about. It's really hard to know someone's story and then to act against that person. And so thank you, Joyce, for that summation. It was excellent. And if anyone wants to, to chat between now and if we could find a time, the next time that we meet, we're open to doing that. And Anum is part of our staff, as is Merida, and Bob is a real helper as well. And so we're certainly available to meet with you. And so looking forward to hearing from you, but also, as Merida indicated, what is it that you were able to do between this session today and what you're going to bring to the table next week? Thanks, everyone. Have a good week. Bye.
Thank you, everybody. See you next week.